second. Okay, fantastic. It says you're live again. I always wait a few seconds. I do my millennial pause on social media for the actual
Just
streaming.
stare.
Exactly, that's the awkward moment. But we're live now. Fantastic. Hey, Frank, Chelsey, it's fantastic to have you today. We're gonna discuss about legal and law compliance in the creator economy, influencer marketing. There are so many questions. I'm very excited about today. Before we get started with the questions, can you just please introduce yourself? For the people that are listening today.
All right, Chelsey, you want to go first? I guess.
Sure, why not? Hi, my name's Chelsey Mori. I never like to go first because I never know how much information to give. But my name's Chelsey Mori. I'm the founder of Unbound Legal, contracts for the entire creator economy. And why don't you go, Frank?
Cool. Yeah, I'm founder of Poe Law, PLLC. I practice in the creator economy. I represent agencies, managers, brands, creators.
Love it. And love that both of you are very dedicated to the creator economy specifically. We know that there are like a lot of things that are specific to the market, right, to the industry. So knowing exactly, right, the specifics and ins and outs is going to be very important for us today. And for everyone that is listening today, please drop your comments in the chat. We will try to answer, of course. During that, we have, again, a very packed, live session today that is going to last around 30 minutes. Again, let's get started. We have a lot of things that are going to be also very interesting and might, divide the public in two in terms of opinion. But Frank, let's start with you. This is something that just happened, right? So you were directly involved, right, in helping Moran prepare for the testimony before the, House Committee on Small Businesses, right, recently.
Yes.
So
yeah.
What was it like watching it first of all, and also like why it is important these days for small businesses, especially influencers and creators, be recognized as small business these days?
Yeah, so very quick story on that. So Kayla Moran of Kayla Moran Law down in Florida, she and I work together very often. The joke was that when she got the call randomly from Congress to go in and testify, I was the first call instead of her parents, but I don't think that's true. I think she called her parents. But anyway, really what enabled us to rally together a few attorneys in the space that we've known for a while and she was required to put together a written testimony about all of the things going on in the creator economy and what Congress can do about them. And then she would then reduce that down to a 5-minute, very strict 5-minute oral testimony. And so she wrangled us, a few of us together. We had some Google Meet sessions where we would organize the thoughts, put together an outline, then submit that 2 days before she had to go down to DC. I met her down in DC. It was a whirlwind of a day. They greeted us, the chairman Williams, he greeted us and we got to meet them. And she had a few people with her as well, like a nice little entourage to support her. And there was a great panel. It was a panel of Christina Brennan, a talent manager, a few creators, and Kayla herself, who's a creator, a manager, and also an attorney. So she's kind of has a different perspectives. And I think the big thing there is that we came in prepared to talk about sort of very niche, like business angles of the creator economy, stuff we all know about and talk about. And obviously Congress and the, all that, the House of Representatives, they have a different perspective on things like, should we go after big tech? Should we deal with, the Decency Act's, Rule 230, exemption for platforms, et cetera. So they had their own sort of agenda. So we kind of had to meet in the middle with a lot of that. But today's discussion here live, it's about compliance. It all starts out in Congress. It starts out with our laws that they develop and create and the executive enforces, and that the Supreme Court hears and determines and how to go about doing that. So in order for all of us to be compliant, this process is very important. And it starts with the legislators trying to understand more about the business and about the industry. And that's what we accomplished that day. And I felt like everyone was sort of represented there. And I was happy to be front row seat to that sort of process. It was very interesting.
Amazing. Thank you, Frank, for sharing, especially, from the outside. What I noticed that many times there is this sort of, complaint about that we're going on different speeds, right? Social media is going a certain speed. The creator economy is going very fast. And sometimes the government, right, is not able to keep up with everything that is changing, right? Think about FTC and all the other regulations. So, after these, Chelsey, I'm also curious, like, what does compliance look like in these days? Because we have different type of creators, we have so many different geographies, we have different platforms, formats, we have TikTok and then live streaming, and then we have newsletters and this and that. Are these disclosures one fits, one size fits all? Do we need, different things? And also, little question on that. Do we think that, again, both government and all the official laws are being able to keep up with the speed of social media, or is it always going to be a sort of, never-ending run to try to keep up?
Yeah, I think laws are always going to be lagging behind and can't keep up with the rapidly evolving tech. It's just impossible. So I always say contracts are the bridge between old law and new tech. But in terms of the FTC disclosure requirements right now, there were some proposals in June this year that called for, they really cracked down. So first, there's a broadened endorsement scope. So it's no longer if you're getting paid for a product or even a gift. Now, if there's even an affiliate link, or you tag the brand, or you mention them, like the brands and the agencies have to be kind of monitoring through social listening tools when people are mentioning your product and making sure that the disclosures are proper. They've also cracked down on, you can't give an endorsement for a product you haven't tried, AI testimonials, fake followers and likes. If an employee or a relative leaves a review and that's not labeled, or if you say, like, tell us how much you love this product for 10% off, these are all now banned. So that's the broadened endorsement. And then second, disclosures must now be very difficult to miss. Before it was just clear, and now it's like, it has to be obvious. And same with the ASA in England, it has to be obvious. So it can't be buried in captions, hashtags, and it can't even be hidden behind the see more in like an Instagram. So like you said, there's so many different, platforms now and how do you maintain disclosures, and it is not one size fits all. So you have to match the medium. So for photos, obviously you're looking at a photo, you have to include the disclosure in the caption, and that's above the see more button. For videos, you have to mention it verbally, but also on screen in case someone's either listening to it and not watching, or they're watching but not listening. And in TikTok and Reels, that's like within the first 3 seconds. With YouTube, maybe it's up to the first 15 or 30 seconds. And in live streams, it's different. You have to actually keep repeating it, maybe every 15 minutes or maybe even sooner. And then same with Amazon, you're having to put affiliate in the title, the disclosure in the first line. So really just keeping on top of those. There's a lot of really cool guides that get into specifics that you can just paste as an exhibit to your contract, that you can say, if this is a TikTok reel, this is, the timing and where the placement needs to be, or, for any of the other platforms. So the guidance is out there. I just want to put the information out there. You don't have to memorize it.
Amazing. Now, I mean, I can see, right, that as you said, each medium, each region, right, is different. Sometimes it's also difficult to find the information. So yeah, if we're gonna be able to put them also for whoever is listening today, and also who is gonna watch the recording, that would be fantastic. And also, since you're saying like that again, now it's a bit more fairly strict when it comes to certain regulations. I know that both of you, right, they are also working on some sort of the best way to structure this, right? So framework and so on. And I know that both of you, right, are working on something. So I will get back to you now, Frank. And I know that you developed the rep model, so as a way, right, to assess creators, agreements. So for people that are not familiar with these, model, can you tell us a bit more what it is and why you developed that one?
Sure. I mean, I've issued and I've reviewed and I've dealt with thousands and thousands of contracts since I was in-house at an agency and beyond. I think last time when Influencer Marketing Factory posted your guidelines, I kind of teased this model a little bit. I came up with it shortly before that, and it stands for rights, expectations, value, and visibility. It's going to be the subject of great discussion. I'm releasing a book on it and everything, because I feel like if you're a creator right now or manager, whoever watching this, and you have a contract in front of you, first of all, put it away because we're doing this. But no, if you were to take every single provision of the agreement and rip it into little slivers, you could place them into one of these 4 buckets. So the creator should be looking out for the rights that they're giving to the brand and the rights that they're obtaining from the brand. They should be looking at the expectations that they have for themselves that are being placed on them, whether it's confidentiality or the morality clause, or the expectations that they have for the brand. Obviously, everyone looks at the value. They look at the $sign, what's coming to them in terms of the check, but also what kind of value are you giving to the brand? And then visibility is sort of a reflexive analysis on all those things, saying, for how long do my rights last, or how long do these rights go out? Is it in perpetuity, or is it, as it should be, temporary? What are the expectations? How long am I supposed to keep confidentiality for? For value, if you're doing a collab, are you getting a perpetual royalty every time the product is marketed, or is it a very limited time? And so that process, I believe, if you were to, my belief in all of this is that if you were to take each provision in a normally drafted creator economy agreement, you could rely upon these 4 buckets and get to the end of it and go, okay, I think I have something here. And so, yeah, over time, as you assess, as we're looking at compliance and everything, what kind of rights are we dealing with? If you're dealing with the like regulated products, for example, you have the right to free enterprise, but obviously the government has the right to restrict and to manage that. So if there are dangerous products, or if there are pharmaceutical products or things like that, you have to be more aware, more conscientious. And so when you're reviewing these agreements, you apply this model to kind of understand and assess what these key areas are and how to address them.
Very interesting, and pretty sure that also we can add a link maybe to some of these resources, right? That the model that you are just talking about, because again there is a lot, right? And a lot for people to have something that they can also visually see there. And
Sure.
Chelsey, still on these, right? I also think that you mentioned in the do-it-yourself, right? AI. Contract redlining tool. I know that many companies these days, right, are using, of course, AI, and it wouldn't be like in 2025 if I also, touch base on AI, of course. Can you tell us a bit more about these? Like, why people might use it or not use it? Like, tell me a bit more about this tool, and like, how did you find about this one, or like, just share with us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I have a do-it-yourself contract redlining tool, and it was born out of frustration with people telling me that they didn't have any contracts, or they were making their contracts with ChatGPT, or I could just tell. And ChatGPT is amazing for so many things, but so far, like, if you're like, make a contract on this, it sucks. I've tried it. I would love to make my work go faster. So basically, there's a lot of legal tech that's offered to lawyers where you can pull from certain clauses, but there was nothing specific to the creator economy that I had used. So instead, I found this Y Combinator company that lets lawyers upload all of the contracts that they've done and create AI models based on their own comments, which is really cool. But then I went to the company and I was like, hey, can I offer this to the creator economy, to like managers and creators, that they can just use my comments, because they don't have a ton of attorney negotiated agreements, but I do. So basically it's a Word add-in, and all they do is they open up the brand deal they were sent, they press run playbook, and it goes through, and I have all these checks that I've embedded in there. And within track changes, it suggests language to add, and they can either accept or deny or add a comment. And then they can also chat with the document and say, explain this to a 5-year-old. What am I agreeing to here? So it's just a way for, creators, managers, if, they're not at the point to hire a lawyer and they're doing it in-house themselves anyway, it's a little bit of a validation, and maybe kind of a little bit of hand holding of like, hey, it's not as good as an attorney, like in a bespoke agreement, but it's better than nothing. And yeah, so it's in beta right now. I'm offering it to people for free to test it out. The feedback has been pretty good so far. So if anyone wants to drop their Microsoft Word email in the comments, or to DM me, I'm happy to add you as a beta tester so you can try it out.
And Chelsey, still like, on these AI or not AI involved, if a campaign is flagged for non-compliance, who is liable there? Is it the creator that is working on the thing? Is it the agency? Is the brand? Is all of them, right? Because many times when these type of situations, there is the like sort of Mexican situation. They were like, everyone is like like looking at each other's, right, and be like, oh, it's your fault, no, it's my fault, no, actually. So again, like, is there an easy way, right, to kind of look into like the again, is there a framework there to understand that there are like ways to understand, is my fault, is your fault, or is still like kind of cloudy?
I have an answer for you. Okay. Yeah. The rule is everybody is liable. The default is everybody gets sued. When the FTC comes to bring an enforcement action, it's the creator, it's the brand, it's the agency. And when like a private consumer brings something, it's against everybody, because it's, it's making more of a splash, more liability. But here's the thing, a lot of that gets contracted away in the contract. So if there's an agreement between the brand and the creator, usually the brand will try and slip that to the creator and say, you're going to indemnify me for any FTC, like any FTC mistakes or disclosures. But, if that originates from the brand, like they told the creator to use a certain type of music or, a certain font and they didn't have the license for that, like that's not okay. So, but that is so yes, everyone by default is liable, but in contracts, you have to assign that liability. So I think a fair thing would be each party indemnifies the other for non-compliance with the FTC endorsement guidelines arising from its own non-compliance.
And still on these, right? I also want to pick your brain, both of you, when it comes to, again, still on the non-compliance, right? I mean, I've been in the industry for more than 10 years now, and I was saying that back in the day for influencer marketing was the Wild West. After 10 years, I can see that still the Wild West, to be honest. Very complicated, right? Because again, there are license terms, right, that are violated many times, content is misused, and now with AI, right? And then there are so many things, right, still happening. What is, in your opinion, like the most common available mistake creators, make, right, when entering these brand deals? So anything that, in your opinion, should be the first things to check. And on the flip side, also how the agency / the brand can also protect themselves, right? Because it's always a good balance. So I don't know who want to start on this, but again, it's still a bit confusing. It's still complicated. What are the first things that both sides should look into when they get into a brand deal or an agreement in the creator economy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll pick up. I mean, there's obviously the big things, right? Obviously, the rights that you're giving up. I mean, the exclusivity and all of those things. I think on the compliance front, what I tend to see just generally coming in, and I agree with Chelsey that there's this whole shifting of obligations, which I actually think that the FTC has the power to void any kind of terms that attempt to shift compliance. They'll just look at the agreement and say, no, you have to follow your own federal law. Like you can't say like, oh, you're going to pay for my fines. Like they usually don't allow things like that. And then, I think most brands just kind of play it safe and just attach a giant 7-page, a thing at the back, just saying like, here's how all the different ways you can apply it. I usually say that like compliance, like FTC compliance specifically, it's a lot like broccoli. It's very easy to describe. It's just hard to get your kids to eat it. The hardest part really is sort of following through with the compliance and actually doing it. We all know the rules, and in fact, lawyers don't even really need to get too deep into the rules because they're designed to be easy to understand and to follow. It's really the follow through, and if there are pressures from brands to kind of avoid that, or what we talked about in Congress in some ways was that the platforms sometimes push content that is properly disclosed down in the algorithm and affect performance for creators, that maybe that should be something that's addressed as well. But for creators to watch out for, again, it's sort of what the expectations are for them to comply with the FTC regulations and all the other laws involved, especially if they're handling products that aren't just simple goods, but maybe that are more regulated.
Yeah, Chelsey, I can jump in there as well. Yes, some quick tips for brands and agencies. One thing you can do is vet the influencer compliance history with tools like Hype Auditor or Tagger before you engage them to know, how good they are generally at following through. You should also record your compliance efforts throughout. So maybe being very specific in what you give them. And I would also take a screenshot of the content once it goes live within the first hour, just so you have that on record that you were, being compliant and following through. You can also put in your contracts that creators, potentially shouldn't be using AI tools at a certain level without prior written consent, or at least disclosing that they're on the hook for that if they do, and maybe agreeing with them beforehand what kind of AI tools are okay. Maybe it's something like Descript, but not changing your likeness or changing something about the product. Another thing, if the creator's fingerprinting or watermarking their product, you can do some proactive monitoring with social listening tools, and also that's really helpful for takedowns with the platforms later. Include the required disclosure language, and if not the language, maybe just like the timing and the duration. And instead of, like Frank said, that 7-page, I would follow up in an email with exactly what you need, or just like a little 1-pager, and not be lazy about it. Brands can keep, a library of per platform examples of disclosures that were approved, and that will help legal approve content faster, and it will also give the creators an example of what to do.
And no, I mean, thank you for sharing all these, especially, when I think about still many brands or unfortunately even agencies, they don't do their homework, right? Prior when they do actually do the influencer or creator selections, right? They think that, oh, whatever, I'm gonna figure it out later. But what I say all the time is that big part of the actually all the campaigns is selecting based on certain criteria. That could be demographics, qualitative, quantitative, but especially these days because of all these new compliance, you want to be sure. There are you will see the history, right, of someone that it's clearly an advertisement that for the past 50 posts that are promoted, they do not disclose, and you most probably don't want to, right, to work with someone that is not disclosing, because the next time most probably this person will not disclose, and then we go back to whose fault it is. Well, it's going to be everyone kind of involved, right, in the campaign. So absolutely, thank you for sharing that. Let's change for a second gears here. This is something that I think that might split some of the audience, and is for you, Frank, and then of course Chelsey, please. I want to hear about that one. But Frank, you probably told that you hate employee generated content. So I want to hear a bit more about that. Like
Hate.
why? I don't know if you say hate or like you don't like it, or it's something that you. Like, tell me, like, is hate the right verb? Is like
Hate is a tough word, but I'm with you on that. Look, I've booed it before, right? I've been to events where we talked about employee generated content. And it comes back to, I mean, look, there is some compliance angles to this because there are labor and employment considerations to worry about this, So for everybody, to get everybody up to speed, employee generated content is when an employer encourages their employees to post on their own accounts to promote the brand. Everyone rows together. And I've heard a lot of pros from the, marketing side of things and the business side of things. But on the legal side of things, we've kind of given it some pause. There are some considerable questions that have to be answered about this. For example, there are some scenarios that, we all know that an employer-employee relationship, it can be a little tense, right? There's the at-will side of it where the employer can fire you for any reason, no reason, as long as it's not an illegal reason. And so, you may have a situation where an employee is posting this content, they're doing really well with it, and then suddenly maybe they want to advance and they want to be promoted, but you're doing so great with this content, why would we do that? So now the employees kind of shot themselves in the foot to advance and move forward. Or maybe on the employer side, they encourage this channel to come up, and suddenly, now you have other employees talking on it about the conditions of the workplace at the where the place of employment. Well, now under labor laws, they're now collecting and they're attempting to collectively bargain. So now maybe under labor laws, there are union issues. And then finally, the big enchilada is the employer-employee relationship eventually may break down. So who owns that channel? Under traditional copyright law, work made for hire, suddenly all that work you put into your own channel is now your boss's. But then at the same time, as we've argued and, up and down, is that traditional IP frameworks don't really do well with the creator economy, because it's not always just about the underlying content. It's about the development of the audience and the trust that's been built there and everything. So that audience is probably going to follow that employee out the door, like we've seen with some cases where people have done that sort of organically. I forget which business it was, but it wasn't like Chick-fil-A or so. It was Popeyes or something, where the creator employee left, and it actually did damage to the brand at some point. So I'm just extremely cautious about it. I think it's presented overly optimistically, and we have our reasons to pause, especially for those labor and employment reasons. So that's where I've been with that.
Okay, Chelsey, how you feel about this? Like, do you agree with Frank? Do you think something differently when it comes to employee generated content?
Yeah, I think Frank kind of covered the different issues with it. I'm happy to move on to the next question if you want to try and get through. I don't have too many. I haven't worked with it much.
And by the way, again, like a little reminder for everyone is listening in to drop your questions so that we can also show it on screen if there is anything that was either unclear or maybe we should repeat, or again something that we are not covered yet. So Chelsey, let's stay with you. I know that you already mentioned AI before, and again, it's such a buzzword, but I think that we should continue covering on those, of course. But I think they also mentioned that these days the regulators are also using AI to, you kind of already said before, right, when it comes to the fingerprints and everything, to really like audit campaigns at scale, right? So like, is this something actually that do you think that can work? Like sometimes technology is great, but has certain limitations. Like again, what does it mean for brands, right, and agencies? There, like, many of us, we run campaigns with hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of creators, right, every single year. So does it actually help? Is it something that can be a support, but then it still needs a manual check? Like, can you tell me a bit more about how do you see AI used for, again, at scale audit compliance?
Sure. I think in addition to social listening tools where, someone should be hired to just see like how, social perception, how your brand is being perceived, who's tagging your brand, things like that, which I'm sure you're already doing. I think there should also be checks, maybe 10% a week of your campaigns, just kind of spot checking them. You could also, sorry, I just blanked there. So in terms of AI, also for takedowns, though, I really believe in fighting fire with AI. You said there's a lot of problems with AI, and that's true. But with lawyers, it's just like whack-a-mole, honestly. Like you can go to your, when you see misuse of content with AI, you can hire a lawyer. They can maybe do 5 to 10 takedowns a day, but it's like whack-a-mole. So I always advocate for fighting fire with fire. The only and best tool I've found right now for actually taking down AI, misuse of content like deep fakes, impersonation accounts, scams, adult content, is low TAI. There's a bunch that will recognize it for you, but there's not a lot of options to take it down. And so, a lot of bigger creators have partners at all these different platforms, and that's pretty easy to get taken down. But for a lot of smaller creators and just brands at scale, it's pretty difficult. So, I advocate for low TAI. So far, I know CAA, WME are using them, and they even have a free plan that offers 5 free takedowns a month for creators. And then for public figures, there's like 24/7 monitoring, and there's a watchtower, and it just puts your content into like deepfakes or impersonation accounts. And then they have a 4-step automated removal process that goes to the website, the credit card processor, the host, and it just keeps escalating. And it gets, I think, like 90-something% of content taken down within 2 days. So that's the best solution I've found so far for my clients.
And I'm also curious on this because, before it was primarily Mr. Beast that was, getting deep fakes and click on this link to get a, free gift card, and it was a phishing attack or something like that, right? Or some scams, because of course, we know that Mr. Beast gives a lot of things, away for the audience and everything. And so, of course, is this also happening now to smaller creators? Like what is happening? Is only the big ones that are being recognized by everyone, or this type of attacks through like AI or deep fake is also to smaller? I'm just curious, like
no, it's everywhere. I've had pretty small clients that say, one of my fans got scammed for a $500 Amazon gift card that they thought they were sending me, but it was to someone else. So whether it's people impersonating them with those accounts or AI chatbots, it's just, it is the wild, wild west right now.
Friend, do you want to add anything on that? I know that we have like just a few minutes left.
Yeah, I mean, I totally acknowledge it exists. From where I stand with AI, I think it's a valuable tool to use. I mean, between brands and creators, for the most part, it's persona non grata. The brands want you to be authentic, and the creators want to maintain their integrity and leverage the authenticity. I've had to send out cease and desist letters for people, accusing other creators of going live, saying that they were using tools that they weren't, things like that. And so it is kind of everywhere, and it's something we all have to be responsible for. And we just had a lawyer in California just get in trouble for using ChatGPT again for cases and everything. So it goes up and down for everybody. Responsibility is key here, and we got to go back to charm school with it.
Thankfully, there is like law in progress. It was introduced in April 2025, the No Fakes Act. So that would make it unlawful to create or distribute an AI generated replica of somebody's voice or likeness without their consent. So hopefully when that goes through, but people are still going to do it.
And we've been pushing for, federalized right of publicity. I think that having a framework that is in addition to our traditional IP frameworks will also combat these things. It gives us more armament on a federal level to go after these kinds of things, because right now it's everywhere, but our right of publicity is still, here and there in the States. So we need to kind of beef that up in order to be able to have more impact.
So we have now, just a couple of minutes left. Is your time now to plug anything that you're working on, resources, something that you're really proud, and we're gonna of course also put a link in the comments later on. But I don't know if Frank or Chelsey, you want to start again. Anything that you're working on that could be very interesting and helpful for the people listening today when it comes again to law and compliance.
Frank, why don't you mention your book?
Yeah, well, yeah, the book's on its way. So I kind of described Rev for you, but I do have had a lot of fun with it, and it's very accessible. It's the way I was able to write a book, was to be able to make it accessible and interesting. So I hope everyone finds that to be the same, and that'll happen. You know, I'm in the process. There's that process, but also everybody keep an eye out for not just FTC, but all these plaintiffs' cases that are coming out, like the Revolve case and the Shein case and everything, about third parties suing creators and brands for FTC violations, which can be very, I guess, predatory and everything. And then, yeah, and also this Tilly Norwood case, or situation with this AI actor. We're keeping an eye out for that too. So these are kind of issues to kind of keep looking at, and I'll be screaming about that on LinkedIn too. So
Cool.
Amazing.
And if you guys are at Vid Summit, I'll be there speaking. So please come and say hi or DM me. And I think we're at time. Also, if you want to drop your comment, drop your email for that AI redlining software. If you want to try it out, happy to add you to the platform.
Fantastic. Well, I think they will really pack a lot of information here. So again, thank you so much, Chelsey and Frank, for joining me today. This was fantastic. I think that we're gonna again recap all of these into a blog post with all the questions. Again, there are a lot of things that are very technical, framework and structures. So I think that the best way is gonna be for us to visualize it. So it's gonna be most probably up next week for anyone that want to check it out. Again, thank you so much, and best of luck, Frank, with your book, and Chelsey, to your speech now with Summit. And thank you so much for joining me again today.
Thank you so much, Alessandro.
thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. And